Back on MorningLine, Nick Beres, along with News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo. We're talking about the accused church shooter, Emmanuel Sampson's phone calls, which we exclusively obtained from the Davidson County Jail. In fact, some people were talking about the fact that he speaks in Sudanese some in his native language. There are apps out there, yes, thank you for many of you following us right now on Facebook, newschannel5.com on Facebook, as well as here on the Plus. Problem is the quality of the phone call is such that if I hold the app near to it to listen, it can't pick it up clear enough to do a good interpretation of it.
The Tennessee Foreign Language Institute, I mean, I use them quite a bit, and they're reasonable, and they have you know, a lot of people that are available. I had called a few agencies. I hadn't called them. Yeah, they're great. They're a wonderful organization.
I will put in that call to them later today to see if we can get them coming over. All right, part two, real quickly, goes into a little more depth, and I think reveals some more things that I think could truly be pertinent for use in the criminal case against the suspect here. Let's have a listen to that part.
It's interesting. Sampson's public defenders don't want his recorded conversations made public. They filed for an injunction here at the courthouse. We challenged it, and the motion was denied. I have a right to those public records. You have a right to hear those phone calls, and Sampson, as you're about to hear, has a right to new attorneys.
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Emmanuel Sampson is charged with killing Melanie Crow Smith and injuring 6 others in a shooting at Burnett Chapel Church of Christ in Antioch last month. Since then, he's been represented by the Metro Public Defender's Office.
When you find a lawyer, call.
But in this phone call, he and his girlfriend discuss finding a new legal team, and she claims lawyers are lining up.
It's a well-known case. It's public. They're just, they know they're going to get a lot of publicity from taking the case, and they're just waxing, honestly.
I didn't know, not necessarily the severity, but I didn't know the limelight that was shown on this weekend's case of mine.
Sampson talks of hoping to get out of jail soon on bond. The reason? He's about to become a father.
This is your first child. I don't want you to miss out on anything, and I don't want to do this without you, baby. You are coming home, baby. You coming home.
I know I am. Hey, like I said, by any means, baby. That's for damn sure. Or die trying.
That is one of several times over many conversations on the phone that Sampson refers to dying. There were reports that he was suicidal in recent months. Here, Sampson talks about an argument he had with his girlfriend that led him to drive away from their home the morning of the church shooting.
Everything about that day, it's like, man, dude, it's like, to say that I would be a fool to, like, leave you.
Seeing you, in a way, saying goodbye to the kids. It was just the gestures you were doing, the way, the things you were saying. You were saying goodbye. But
you know what? You're right, though. Yes, that is exactly what I was saying to them or whatever.
So, does that mean Sampson planned to leave home, go shoot up a church, and then possibly take his own life? There's little doubt that these recorded conversations will become part of his trial, and a jury will ultimately decide. In Nashville, Nick Beres, News Channel 5.
Nick, as far as what I've been able to pick up looking through the phone calls, that last one was most interesting to me as far as it relates to what happened the morning of the shooting. I haven't heard anything where he's talked specifically about what happened out there or what he was doing. But clearly, first of all, we find out that his girlfriend's pregnant with his first child, okay? And there are arguments and tension here, okay? And there's a big argument that morning of the shooting. And the way she's talking about this, we had heard that Sampson had been suicidal in the past. And the way she's saying it, and almost like she expects it and understands it, she's like, you were saying goodbye. Not like, see ya, I'll be back this afternoon. She was implying, you were saying goodbye like to the kids, like I'm never going to see you again, and drove away. And then you wonder, that's why I ask in the past, could that come up? Because to me, I take that as like he was upset in some kind of blind rage, angry at whatever the argument was with her. He was saying goodbye to everyone, and he was driving off to maybe try to get suicide by cop or something. Who knows? That's just a theory, but that was, he had an argument the morning of the shooting with his girlfriend.
Well, I mean, you know, the state in the state of Tennessee, the prosecution does not have to prove motive. Okay, I mean, and that's not an element of the crime. Of course, you know, that's the pink elephant in the room in a lot of cases like this. Is why would somebody do something like this? But the thing that really strikes me in both of your pieces is that he just thinks that he's got a DUI or something, like he's going home. I mean, this guy has, killed people. They're witnesses. Okay, I don't see how in the world he is going to get out of these charges, quite honestly. I mean, and he's
oblivious.
Yeah,
this guy is just in a dream world, oblivious. He at this point doesn't have bond. He's still incarcerated. I don't believe. Now we're still waiting, by the way, for the grand jury to come back with the official indictments. Could he get bond, or this could be a capital crime?
Well, you're entitled to a bond as a matter of constitutional right, okay? And so unless it's a capital case like we saw with Mr. Zachary Adams, if the state's seeking the death penalty, you're not entitled to a bond, but otherwise, you're very much so entitled to a bond. The question is going to be how much is that bond?
Why has that not been set yet? Would you imagine? Or maybe there has. Well, I don't think there's been a bond here.
I don't know if there's a bond set or not, but a lot of times in a situation like this, when somebody commits a murder, they just immediately go arrest them, and then they are arrested on a general sessions arrest warrant for a criminal homicide. It doesn't really say what kind it is. It doesn't say if it's first degree premeditated murder, if it's felony murder, if it's second degree murder, and that's something that'll be the grand jury will hear the case and come back with an indictment and determine what level of murder it is. But it's probably an open court bond. That's it's something I'm sure a night court magistrate doesn't want to touch. Wants to have a bond set after we have some sort of hearing. But obviously he's got the public defender, okay, and you have a public defender because you're indigent, and so if he's going to come out here and make some $5 million bond or some $100,000 bond, then he can't have the public defender. So I mean, I don't think that with these set of facts, I don't necessarily believe that at this point that he would be able to get any kind of reasonable bond. I mean, he's entitled to one, but I don't think he would be able to make it. It's going to be very high.
Based on what you know about this crime, is this something that, should Glenn Funk decide to, could qualify as a death penalty case? Mass shooting, one dead, hits and injures 6 others. Could that qualify with aggravating circumstances for the death penalty?
Think back to the Holly Bobo case, especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Okay, think about the facts of that case versus and some of the Paul Reed murders. I mean, the death penalties that you've seen versus somebody that just does a horrific act like that. Typically, obviously, the state could pursue capital charges. Could pursue the death penalty. But that's something that you usually see within 2 or 3 months of the issuance of an indictment. It's not something that you're going to see 2 years from now. The state's going to just all of a sudden pop up and say, hey, it's going to be a capital case. Okay, so that's something that if that decision was going to come, it would come, I would think, within close proximity to the return of the indictment by the grand jury.
We talk about motive, and you're absolutely right. I've learned this from you. The prosecutors don't have to prove a motive, they just have to prove he did it. But a lot of people wonder why he did. Now, keep in mind, there was a note found that he had written that made reference to Dylan Roof in regard to the Charleston church shooting. Made reference to it. This is still under investigation by the feds to see if this can be classified as a hate crime. Nowhere so far in the phone calls have I heard him make any reference to Dylan Roof or the Charleston shooting in terms of maybe this is payback for that. You targeted a black church, I'm going to target it. We haven't heard anything along those lines to that point. Someone was asking about that. Others are wondering if he's this clueless about the charges against him, could he try to be setting himself up for a mentally incompetency thing? I don't think so, because he's lucid on enough of these other calls. These other calls, he's very... This sounds like the kind of guy that could switch moods in a click of a finger, just a snap of a hand.
And I understand why the public defender's office doesn't want these phone calls out there, because if they're trying to set him up for some sort of insanity or diminished capacity of defense, or because I don't know what else they could possibly do. I mean, there's witnesses that saw this guy do this. I mean, I just don't see what defense you would have to it other than mental health issues that he may have. Okay, but if you listen to these phone calls, he sounds normal. I mean, the only thing that, from what I've seen and what you've put out there, the only thing that would suggest that maybe there was some mental health issues is the fact that he doesn't understand the severity of the crime, that he thinks he's going home, which is ludicrous, honestly.
I mean, it's just it makes no sense. I mean, and it's true too. Nowhere on here so far, and again, I have not listened to all the calls, do I hear any remorse whatsoever. And you're right, he is an accused church shooter. He is an alleged church shooter. But there is no doubt that he was there. In fact, we've even heard after the fact. I mean, it's not like a mystery, do we have the wrong guy? The question is, how did it go down? Why did it go down? All of that, correct? But I mean, we still, technically, of course, he's innocent until proven guilty. But there's a reason he's still incarcerated.
Sure. I mean, and I think that, any judge that would, hear any kind of bond motion is going to have concerns. I mean, he obviously has the ability, he's bilingual. Okay, he's very fluent in Sudanese. I mean, there's a large concern about a flight on behalf of him. But I mean, there's things that the court could do. There's conditions on that bond. They could put him on electronic monitoring or put him on a GPS monitor or something like that, make him forfeit his passport and the like. But again, a bond of that nature is just really, really going to be, you know, extraordinarily high.
Yeah, and I don't see him being able to afford that and then at the same time have a public defender.
No, absolutely not.
It's just not going to happen. Let's. Do you think there's anything to what his girlfriend was saying about how, well, you know, we're going to be looking for attorneys for you now, and they're lining up to represent you because of the publicity?
You know, the last time I saw him in court, he had, I believe, John Wing, the public defender's office. He's a great lawyer. Been there a long time, very experienced.
Yeah. What's his name again?
John Wing.
That's right. Yeah, he is good.
He's a great lawyer.
I'm very impressed
I mean,
with him.
you're not going to really do a whole lot better with this set of facts with any other lawyer. And, you know, you're getting a great lawyer for free. I mean, I definitely would probably stick with John Wing before I would go with anybody that just wants the case for publicity, because you're going to lose. I mean, you know, it's not.
We were walking over to the courthouse yesterday for the hearing, and I'm looking at my phone, and I wasn't looking at the traffic like an idiot as I'm walking. And John grabbed me and pulled me back before I walked into the intersection with the car coming.
He saved your life.
Yeah, there you go. And he's a very nice man. And he was there with the public defender.
Don Diener.
Don Diener was there as well, yes. And I have a lot of respect for the public defender's office. Without them, our legal system crashes.
They've got some great lawyers over there, too.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Morning, Nick.
Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Just listening to your conversations and the phone calls, this guy might be smarter than people think he is, because he might be using these phone calls like Leonardo said was, you know, he could be trying to set up a defense that he's mentally unstable. But listening to him and his girlfriend talk, it seems that they either don't have any feelings.
Nope.
Or, I mean, his girlfriend would have to be classified as being mentally unstable too.
I think there's something wrong with her too, in terms of her perspective and the way she reacts on the phone. And I can only play a small portion for you, Joe. Sitting there listening to this over and over again, it starts giving me a headache. You know, some of the listen, I don't give him as much credit as you're suggesting. He's not smart enough to be doing this and trying to set something up. I guarantee you, it didn't occur to him that the media might get a hold of these calls. No way. No way.
The other question I've got, Nick Leonardo can probably address this. I don't know what the policy is at the jail on phone calls, but when you're in prison, I think maybe you can get 5 phone calls a week or something like that, and they bring a portable phone to your cell for you to use. But I don't see how this guy could have had the freedom to make 140 phone calls. Seems like to me that these people are prisoners and people that's committing these heinous crimes have more rights than even the public does to get the information from them. And it's great to hear the input from Nick from the lawyer side, because he brings up a lot of interesting things that an average person like me would not think of.
What do you think about that, Nick?
I don't know. I mean, as far as what Joe says, I never really considered. I mean, Joe brought up an interesting point. What if, you know, that was part of the defense, was to get on the phone, and, you know, it gives him a lot of credit. But, you know, what?
Yeah,
I mean,
as I listen, there's no way. He's not that smart.
No, but I mean, you know, when you're in the Davidson County Jail over here, I mean, you know, you have access to the phones, okay, and you have, you know, you can use the phone, you know, as long as you're not in trouble, you're not in lockdown, and you're not in segregation or anything like that. I mean, you have access to the phone, and Joe's right. I mean, a lot of times in the Department of Corrections, if you are on a 23-hour lockdown, 23-hour day lockdown, they will bring the phone to your cell. But he has access over here. He's innocent until proven guilty, and he's in the Davidson County Jail, and he has access to the phone. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, I can't think of how many stories I've seen the media do where people have blown it over the phone.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
So as we go to the break, you're exactly right. And just 3 things I want to say, because several people contacted me. They appreciated the story, but they all wondered, 140 calls, some of them a half hour each. How is he doing this? There's really 3 good reasons that go to this. First of all, those calls aren't free. He's making those calls either collect or by a prepaid phone card paid for someone on the outside. 2, if there's just inmates and they're just sitting there on the phone talking all day, they're not getting into trouble, causing problems behind bars. And 3, anything they say on those phone calls can and will be used against them in the court of law. There's really no downside. So a lot of people say, well, it seems like they have more rights. They're on the phone all day. I don't know about you. I don't want to spend all day on the phone, but he has nothing else to do. And if this keeps the inmates from getting into trouble, I don't see any problem at all with them making this many calls.
And bear in mind, too, this is a really big man. He's a man of stature. So, I mean, if you or I wanted to use the phone, we're definitely not going to tell him to hurry up, okay? I mean, so he's
a big dude.
He's a big guy.
It's no longer the way it is in the old days where there's a whole line of people waiting to use the payphone on the wall. They do, Joe's right, bring the phone to you in the cell, and you're sitting there talking on it.
But, I mean, you know, I'm sure he's first, and he can use it as long as he wants. I mean, he's a big guy.
Yeah, well, I think while he's doing it, I think there's other phones being brought to other inmates. I don't think there's just one phone anymore, and that's the way that works out. But you're right, he's a big guy, which we're going to take a break. We come back. One aspect, you know, I've seen some of these pictures of him, big into bodybuilding. I wonder if there was steroid abuse going on here. Maybe that had something to do with some of his behavior. We'll take a break, be back with more of your calls. Also, you can message us with any questions or comments. Use channel5.com on Facebook. We're streaming live. We'll be right back.
You know, but if I